The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network presents Weighted Donuts with your hosts Wayne Unger and Craig Stier.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's show of Weighted Donuts. I'm Wayne Unger, and unfortunately tonight my co-host Craig Stier is not available, but you know, we've got a pretty deep bench, and filling in for Craig tonight, I have friend of the show, a former guest, Marc Weiss. Welcome, Marc. How are you?
Hey, Wayne. I'm great. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. So we were discussing some things on the phone, and let's see if we could start with a shorter subject. I've seen a lot of stuff bandied around, should I say, on different discussion groups concerning Clayton Kershaw. How they say, well, once again, the guy did not come up in the big moment. And, of course, in another group, they were, comparing him to Sandy Koufax. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's preposterous to say that once again he didn't come up big in a big moment, because if he doesn't save that game on 2 days rest in the LDS against Washington, this team doesn't even get to the LCS. If he doesn't win the game prior to this one, his prior start, they don't even get to this point. The bottom line is that this was a faulty team that was built around pitching that never existed. They had one true starter the whole year, and he missed 2 months with a back injury with herniated discs. And I've got that, and I can tell you that that is not a bargain in any way, shape, or form. And for this guy to go out there and put a team on his shoulders with that bad back was amazing. To compare him to Koufax, we're comparing people in different eras. It's impossible to compare a guy who went out there and threw 300 and something innings and struck out 380 something batters in an environment where he was pitching complete 20 plus complete games every year. It's a different game, and to compare those two guys, it's impossible. It's like apples to oranges. It'd be like comparing Koufax to Cy Young when those guys pitch both ends of doubleheaders. The game's so different.
I agree, but but actually, some people made some points, not to say that Kershaw is better than Koufax, but to say, basically, but to defend Kershaw and say it's not like Koufax was like so much better. I mean, for one, one person brought up and said, well, for half of Sandy's career, he was less than average. And, of course, to be fair about that, he was a bonus baby. And for those of you that don't know, back in the day, I believe it was if you signed somebody for a $75,000 bonus or more, I think they had to be on the major league roster for at least 1 year, if not two. It was something to that effect. And then, of course, now while Koufax had 5 amazing years, it was 5 years. You never know what would have happened. And if you look at Kershaw's in-season stats compared to Sandy Koufax, in a way that, when you talk about innings pitched to hits, you talk about strikeouts per 9 inning and everything else, they're actually quite comparable. Of course, he's not going to throw the same amount of innings, but also somebody pointed out that Koufax averaged 7 2/3 innings per game. And Kershaw, I believe, this season, they said he averaged 6 2/3, or maybe it was for his career. I'm not sure, but they weren't, considering the era, it wasn't all that far off. And the other thing, of course, that makes the difference for the innings is pitching every 4th day for Koufax as opposed to pitching every 5th day for Kershaw. But you know what? They really weren't so far off. And as far as I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it to you, but I know I've said it on the show before. Don Mattingly, and I'm a Yankee fan. I feel as though Don Mattingly was a terrible manager, and he was not a good handler of pitching staffs. And 2 years in a row, I felt as though he left Kershaw in too long in a few starts, which he ultimately ended up getting hit in the 6th or 7th inning. I believe it was the 7th inning, like 2 years in a row. And, and that's the stain that tarnishes him when he should have been pulled in the first place.
Well, that actually happened to him again this year too, where he got hit in that 7th inning where he should have been pitched, but those teams did not have the bridge to get to Kenley Jansen. And so the goal was to get Kershaw to go 7 and then bring Jansen in for the final 2 and bypass all the other pitchers who were burnt out in that bullpen because they didn't have a starter who can get 5. And so most of these bullpen guys, their arms were hanging down to their ankles. And at this time of year, if you can't overpower them in the postseason, that's going to be a problem. But I think the real rub here is the postseason comparison between the two of these guys. And Koufax sits tight forever and ever. His numbers won't change. He'll be 4-3 with a 0.95 ERA, and everyone will remember that Game 7 on 2 days rest that he pitched in 1965 against the Minnesota Twins with that great lineup that they had, and that's what's etched in everyone's mind. And with Clayton Kershaw, the resume is still being built. I mean, obviously, people fail to realize that this 3-time Cy Young Award winner and 1-time MVP is only 28 years old. To put it in proper perspective, he's a year older than Matt Harvey, who has no resume, really, if you think about it, other than Game 5 of last year's World Series. And Kershaw has built up this huge resume. The problem is he's sitting at 4-7 with a 4.55 ERA in the postseason. He still has had some big games. He had a big game in the LDS last year against the Mets. He certainly had a big game this year with that save, and he also pitched well in the LCS the first time around. Second time around, the Cubs weren't to be denied. But you know what, Wayne? How about this stat? How many runs did the Dodgers score in Game 6?
Man, it was so many. I lost track.
Yeah, you couldn't count it because they scored 0.
Exactly.
They didn't score any runs against the Cubs. So Kershaw could have been pitching all night long, and it wasn't going to make a difference what he did because his offense didn't put a run on the board. And last time I checked, you can't win games 0-0.
And there's another thing too. People don't realize back when Koufax pitched, he pitched in one playoff series.
Right.
He didn't pitch. And basically now, like, if you do make it to the World Series, that's your third series. That's your third postseason series. And these are all, they're high pressure. What's the word that they use for pitches? When they talk about the innings, easy innings, hard innings.
Oh, pitching under duress.
Under duress, stress, high stress. These, high stress innings. And, you got 3 series worth of that as opposed to 1. So, I'm with you. It's not to, and it's not to say that, I'm here to say, well, Kershaw was as good as Koufax, but, you certainly can't, also say with any kind of disdain, oh man, he's no Koufax, he'll never be a Koufax. Hey, listen,
you know what though?
You know what? Every other pitcher, every other team, I know every team in baseball wishes they had another Clayton Kershaw. So that's the bottom line as well.
I think his comparison problem isn't with Koufax because nobody compares with those final 5 years. They were just otherworldly. Ungodly, whatever terminology or adjectives you want to use. You can't compare anything to that. And plus, when you're a guy like that and you actually leave the game like he did at the end, on the top of his game, that you leave them wanting more, and that's always a big thing too. But I think the big problem for Kershaw is that he doesn't compare well to the guy from San Francisco who is his contemporary and is his peer. And I think that's the problem, because that guy's had so many big postseason moments that you can hang your hat on, especially that World Series, 2 years ago, when he basically was a one-man show dominating the Kansas City Royals. I think that's the signature moment Kershaw needs, and if he gets that, everyone forgets everything else that happened.
And he came close. He came close when he came back and pitched 2 innings of relief against Washington. He kind of had that moment, and he did. They did beat the Cubs 1-0 in Game 2.
Right.
I believe he was the starting pitcher. He went 7 innings, and Jansen went 2. But it's again, yes, it's like, well, what can you do next? And hopefully there's another moment for him.
He at 28, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of moments for him. He, God willing, he stays healthy. I mean, obviously the herniated discs in the back, that's really nothing to laugh about. He missed 2 months. I think it's just a miracle that he even got back in September and was able to pitch in the postseason. I saw him in September pitch against the Yankees up in the Bronx, and I was sitting behind home plate. We were fortunate enough to get great tickets to sit there. I have to say that the Yankees actually came through and comped us on those seats. So sometimes they don't get enough credit as an organization of doing right by their fans, but they did a great job with my sports program that I run a girls travel softball program, and we did a fundraiser with them, and as a reward for selling a lot of tickets and, working with them, they gave us these great seats. And I sat there and I watched this guy's curveball, and I've never seen a curveball just drop straight down like his. I don't know how anyone could hit that unless you were swinging a spatula or something. It's just amazing. And he was only about a week or two off of his recovery from the herniated discs. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a miracle that the guy made it back, and people can't discount the fact that he was probably still not pitching 100% even in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, that was also particularly in the last game against the Cubs. Right away, the people that know the game, the people that can just watch somebody throw, that had seen him throw, they said they felt as though the back was bothering him. He was opening up to he was flying open, and I forgot exactly how they explained it, but they were saying why you would fly open sooner because of the pain and the lack of the flexibility. So, and someone I have never experienced the pain of a herniated disc, or at least I wasn't aware of it. I actually have a calcified herniated disc. So I had it at some point in my life, but I was too young and dumb to feel it and know about it. But even with bad muscle strains in my back, believe me, I know. I remember having, managing and playing for a softball team, and I hurt my back, and I wasn't supposed to play, and we were a man short. So it was like, okay, I'll play first base. And it was coincidentally 3 or 4 times during that game, ground balls were hit to me, and I had to make the unassisted play at first base. And guys, they saw how, after the first guy hit the ball to me, and they saw how slow I was moving because of my back. Anytime the ball got hit to me, a ground ball got hit to me, they ran up the line, and I just barely, made it back to the base because, I could barely run. I could barely, walking was a strain, and this was with a badly pulled muscle, not with herniated discs. So.
Yeah, herniated discs. I have them in my neck, the C5, 6, and the C6, C7, and I still try to play ball, but it's not good, and you never know what you get. Some days you feel great, you could slay the world, and other days you go out there, especially when the weather's damp and cold or windy, and it just affects you. And he was pitching in Chicago, and the weather in Chicago in October is not the weather in Chicago in August. or the weather in California. And that, I think, was the other problem, too, is that the two games he pitched were both in the Windy City and not in Los Angeles, where the weather is a lot more conducive, especially for nighttime baseball. But you know what? We'll never know. And the proud athlete that this guy is, he's not going to hang an excuse on his performance.
No, we didn't. Never a word about it. Never
if you
a
hear
word
it, it'll be from a minion, not from him.
I was about to say there was never a word about it in any of the press conferences. So, okay. Now you were telling me that you made a pretty special baseball road trip. Give us a little. Give us a rundown. You hit about 15 different stadiums, I believe it was.
I think it was more like about 10 or 15 games in that.
Oh, I'm sorry, 10 or 15 games. Gotcha. Okay.
But I've probably hit about 24, 25 stadiums over the course of my life since I've been collecting stadium stops. But this was last summer. It actually, I flew from New York to Cincinnati the last day of June, and I caught a night game in Cincinnati that first night. Stayed over in a hotel, caught a night game in Cincinnati, and then I caught a day game the next day, and it was actually a day where it was raining on and off, so we had some rain delays. But it was great to see that ballpark, day game, night game, the differences between the two. And I have to say that, number one, Cincinnati has this wonderful Reds Hall of Fame that you actually get your hand stamped. You walk out of the ballpark, you walk across a courtyard, and that's where it is. And on off days, you can just go in there. And it's like a mini Cooperstown for the Cincinnati Reds. It's got their whole history from 1876 all the way to the present. And it's presented so well. And they have tour guides there, and you learn a lot about Reds and baseball history. And I was amazed by it. I've seen museums or Hall of Fames in ballparks, like Citi Field has one, Yankee Stadium has one, and this one blew me away. I thought that was a fantastic place. And the ballpark itself was great. There were great views. But the thing that I liked the most about it were the security folks there, the ushers. I'm a photography nut, and I love to take pictures of games. And I probably post way too many of them on Facebook, and I probably bore people to death, but I love to do it. And I was taking pictures standing behind the lower level, and one of the ushers said to me, we've been talking for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and he said to me, what are you doing? I said, taking pictures. He goes, well, you can't get a good picture from here. You should be closer. And I'm like, well, I don't have tickets down there. He goes, there's 3 empty seats. Go down there and take pictures. No one will care. And where do you see that? Would you see that at Yankee Stadium or Citi Field?
No, actually, it's funny. We were talking about that we had been to a Tampa Rays game a day apart. I actually looked it up. I was there the day before.
So you were on Tuesday. Happy
April
Tuesday.
26th. There you go. And, like I was telling you, we had tickets. We were about the 8th or 9th row behind the dugout, behind the Rays dugout, and the tickets were $35. But the section wasn't filled up. It wasn't filled up, and some people had gone down to, let's say, the third row, and no one else was there. And we're talking 4th, 5th inning, and an usher was chasing them out of there. So and Yankee Stadium, forget about it. It's the lower seats are barricaded. You can't even walk through. It's almost like they're separating, the haves from the have-nots.
Isn't there a nickname they call it, the moat, that separates those
yes.
real expensive lower seats from the really good lower seats?
Yeah, pretty much. I've been fortunate to have sat in pretty decent lower seats. My friend's wife, through her job, a couple of times got me a couple of tickets, and it was great. But there was you couldn't get any further than that. That was it. Like, it, you know, otherwise, like, you have to go in the moat and the alligators will get you, and you know, and you're done.
Exactly.
So,
Like I've joked around with Ralph and a few other people, and I said Yankee Stadium is the place where they hire poor people to protect the rich people from the middle class people from going where they sit.
sounds about right. Well, I tell you, I don't know about the upper levels. You know, actually, no, because I'm trying to think. I didn't, you know, believe it or not, I didn't get to the stadium this year. The year before, I only got to 2 games. And one game we had the good seats. Another game we were sitting behind home plate, but we were sitting all the way up. But I actually liked the view. I liked the perspective. And I noticed, like, up top, you know, they didn't have the secret, you know, the former Secret Service type security personnel that they have at the lower levels. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know,
I definitely do. They're like they stepped right out of the movie Men in Black.
Exactly. You know, so yeah, big difference. And quite frankly, to me, in a way, it's a turnoff. It really is. You know, I'm not a fan of the new Yankee Stadium. I'm really not. To me, it's like somebody built a shopping mall with a huge food court and put a ballpark in the middle of it. That's how it is to me.
I mean, the only thing it's missing is casino gambling.
Yeah. I mean, Citi Field isn't that much difference, but I think the design itself, you know, gives it a little bit of a difference in ambiance, but the obstructed views for the outfield drive me crazy. And to me, I consider them completely unacceptable. I really do.
I consider it completely unacceptable, the same as you do. And the reason I do is because they spent $1.5 billion building the new Yankee Stadium. They hired the best contractors. They hired the best architects, and nobody could have figured out that the Mohegan Sun Club was protruding so far into center field that bleacher seats would be, if you sat in them, you couldn't see the right field or the left field corner. And then to throw insult to injury, they slap up 3 flat panel TV sets on the walls there and say, hey, watch those when the ball goes into the deep corners. I mean,
yeah, well, it's
not
the same
figure
thing
that
at
out in the
Citi
model?
Field. I mean, you know what? It's the same thing at Citi Field, though. You know, too many obstructed outfield views. Like, it's just, you know, I'm sorry, but like, it's just not acceptable, and it's in a way, it's like kind of a turnoff, because guess what? What is the most exciting play in baseball? The home run. If you ask me, the home run. So if you can't see that ball go over the wall, if you like are watching the ball and then you lose sight of it, okay, and then, you know, by the time you turn to the monitor, the ball is already gone, but you missed the best part of it, watching it go over the wall, particularly if it was close or if it's near a foul pole or it just clears the wall, things like that, you miss it. Like, so
I don't understand. I guess I have trouble comprehending the modern architecture of the new ballpark. I understand why, since Camden Yards, every ballpark has had this retro feel, and I get that because I kind of like it. I think, especially, I love Camden Yards. The first day I actually went to see a game there, I was at Old Memorial Stadium the year before when it closed, one of the final games, and then I went the following year to Camden Yards, and I was bowled over by it. I thought it was fantastic, but then they got nichey, and then they try to outdo themselves. And every one of these ballparks after that, they try to make funky corners, and they try to trip it up. And you know what? The old ballparks like Fenway are built the way they're built because of the land that was given to them. That's why you have the Green Monster, because you couldn't go out into the middle of the street because there was actually a street there. And I think they went above and beyond tripping things up. And at the, you know, it just, you go too far sometimes. With Citi Field, they built this huge cavern, And I think Howie Rose used to joke and call it the Great Wall of Flushing because it was such a far shot from home plate to left field, and eventually they pulled it in twice to make it more in line with a normal ballpark. But the thing that kind of knocked me back is I sit at the games and I was talking to my friend. I'm like, I don't feel the line of sight here is great. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I'm not looking at home plate. He goes, well, all the seats were designed to look into second base. And I'm like, but isn't 90% of the action by home plate? That's what I want to see. I want to see the batter. I want to see the pitch. I want to see the umpire, the catcher. I don't want to be angled straight at second base and then have to turn my herniated disc neck and have to look at home plate. And he said, nope, that's the way it's designed. And I'm like, but I don't understand who would design it that way.
I understand what you're saying. To me, the way they design the ballparks, it kind of, like you say, they're just trying to add every little niche to it. It's sort of like, to me, fusion food. Okay? Do you ever go into a restaurant?
That is a great analogy.
That
really is.
You're glancing at the menu, and you see, okay, it's got this, and that, and that, and that. Oh, that's great. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, why'd you add this? Oh, and that, like, why didn't you stop there? Like, stop there. It was great. Just like that, you added, it was different, like, I can almost imagine the combination of flavors, but then you, like, add something from, like, another spectrum, and I'm like, oh, man. And you know what? And of course, I asked the question, waiter or waitress comes, can you make this without this, and that, and...
Womp, 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 womp.
Yeah. And, usually, like, they can, so, but nonetheless, but that's exactly how I look at it, like, it's like, you just took it too far. So.
And I think it's because they're just constantly trying to outdo the last one. What was it? I always forget the names of some of these places just because the company went out of business or bankrupt or they sold the naming rights to another company. But I think it's the one in Houston. It used to be Enron Field, and I think it's now the Juice Box as a nickname. And when they built that,
it's Minute Maid Park,
right? And they call it the Juice Box, right? That's the nickname that the fans have for it. Well, they have that area in that knoll in center field where they have the flagpole.
Yeah, I think it's named after Tal Smith, actually.
Yes, Kyle's Folly or something like that, whatever the case may be. But I remember the Mets playing a game there probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Carlos Beltran going back for a fly ball, running up that knoll, catching the ball, buckling his knee, and all I kept thinking to myself is some idiot designed this little hill out there that's going to injure a multi-million-dollar ball player. Why? Because someone thought it was a niche-y, cute thing to do. And why? What was the need for it? I mean, were they trying to recreate a little bit of that uphill that you had at Old Crosley Field in Cincinnati? Well, that was just because that's the way the ballpark was leveled. This is because someone went out of their way to say, let's put that there and challenge somebody, or wouldn't that be a really cool thing to be there? I don't get it. I like the train that goes around the side of the place. I just don't like that thing there because I always thought someone's going to blow out a knee and, that's just going to ruin a season.
Exactly. You're not designing a golf course, okay? Where you want, it's just different. I agree. I tell you, it's funny. Talk about sight lines in the old Yankee. Well, let's just say in the middle Yankee Stadium, okay?
Or as people like to refer to it as the refurbished Yankee Stadium.
The refurbished Yankee Stadium. I used to get tickets, Coca-Cola, I think I've mentioned this before. My day job, I work for Coca-Cola, and when Coca-Cola was the beverage sponsor at Yankee Stadium, every year, once a year, we'd get 4 tickets. They were nosebleed tickets, but I didn't mind. They were usually in right field, way up in the sky. But I tell you what, it was I enjoyed it, and I'll never forget the last year we got the tickets. before they went to Pepsi, Andy Pettit was pitching. And so, of course, a lefty or in right field, it was great. And I went with my daughter and her friend, her best friend in elementary school, and her mother came in. And I'm like, just trying, she was asking questions. She was very curious. She was, she knew baseball a little bit. She liked baseball. And I was like, just showing her, like from our vantage point, you can really see Pettit changing speeds, moving the ball around. And I was like showing her how she was, he was keeping them off balance. Mm-hmm. And then, I believe they got to the sixth inning and I says, they're on him now. And Joe Torre was the manager, and I was like, oh man, it's time to pull him. It's, it's it. They got him. He's either losing his command or they getting the timing down, but they're just not off balance like they were. And of course, Joe Torre, I felt as though he stuck with people too long. And of course, Don Mattingly was his bench coach, so,
Enough said, right?
Yeah, exactly. Nonetheless, I love those seats. And I was able to see the whole stadium from up there, the whole field, okay? Sometimes, you lost track of where a high fly ball was going, whether it was going to right or center or whether it was going to left or center. But you were able to see the whole thing. You were able to see the ball go over the wall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, anyway. So tell us about some of the other stadiums you've been to.
Well, after Cincy, I drove to St. Louis and got a chance to hang out with my cousin, who's more like a brother to me. We kind of grew up together in the same house as kids when we were youngsters, and so getting to spend some time with him was great. And he's a big Cardinal fan out there in St. Louis, so we went to a Cardinal game there. I believe they were actually playing. Were they playing Chicago? I think they're playing Chicago, and the sight lines in that stadium were pretty good. It was obviously one of the newer ballparks, but nothing overly special that jumped out and grabbed me, to be quite honest. It's just that the thing that grabbed me were Cardinal fans. The sea of red, everyone was really into the game. It was a sellout, and it was actually pretty cool. We got there early because it was 1982 Cardinals championship ring giveaway day. And we thought we would come early and get those, but the line was so long, so we just went to the Baseball City Park, which is outside of that, and that's a whole load of restaurants and stores and stuff like that. So picture what you see inside the grand hall of Yankee Stadium. They have it outside in a whole little city area called Baseball City, and it's outside in St. Louis. So that was the next stop. Then after that, a couple of my friends flew in from New York, and I picked them up at the airport, and we went to my cousin's big annual 4th of July party. And after that, the next day, we actually got up early and drove straight through to Chicago. And we went to the Cubs game, and we sat out in the bleachers, which was pretty amazing. Wrigley Field's Wrigley Field. They try to build new ballparks that look like it, but they don't feel like it, and they certainly don't have the same oomph that a place like Wrigley had. And it was an excruciatingly hot day in July. There was no wind inside the Windy City, and it felt like it was probably about 100 degrees, even though it probably wasn't. And we eventually had to get out of the bleachers, and we went and found seats behind home plate, which was easy to get into because everyone wants to sit in the coveted bleacher seats. So we sat in the shade and enjoyed that, and good game. We actually got to go on the field after the game, which
wow,
that's a pretty cool story because the rules were you could only go on the field with the kids because it was kids get to run the bases day. And I'm with my two softball buddies who flew in, and none of us possessed kids, but in front of us online was a family that had 3 little boys, and we decided to borrow some kids from them so that we could get on the field, and they were happy enough to lend them to us so that we could get on the field.
Wow. So
I know.
Some couple lent you their 3 kids, lent 3 kids to complete strangers.
They were in front of us. They walked on the field with us. They stayed with us the whole time. We took pictures with them. They took pictures with us. And then when the boys got to first base to run, they ran all the way around. I walked around taking pictures. When the kids crossed home plate and the parents were supposed to get them, they scooped up their kids, and we all went our separate ways.
Excellent.
Because
By the
the
way,
security guards weren't going to let us on.
Yeah. By the way, it's funny. We're talking about Yankee Stadium, and I remember I heard something today that they actually announced family-friendly stadium enhancements for Yankee Stadium. I'll read real quick one article. The Yankees on Monday announced a series of enhancements to their game day amenities, including new options for purchasing food and beverages, new social gathering places, and a children's zone. So, and also on, and I'm just going to skip, new food and drink locations include the batter's eye deck on the 200 level in center field, which will feature a view of the entire stadium. Bullpen landings in left field and right field that overlook 2 bullpens, a sports lounge at section 134, the field level, and party decks on the 300 level that include views of the field. The off-season changes will result in the removal of just under 2,100 seats, including 1,100 obstructed view seats in the bleachers and about 600 terrace-level seats. Now, okay, yes, you're taking away 1,100 obstructed views, but I don't like that they're taking away 1,100 bleacher seats away. So I'm curious to see what the whole balance on that is. And they also said that the changes will result in more than 200,000 additional tickets priced at $15 or less being made available for next season. So basically, they're trying to. It's all about attendance, like how Steinbrenner says, "Oh well, we've listened to our fans and this and that." No, you only listen to the fans because you notice a little dip in the money.
Well, they listen to the echoes of the noise and the empty seats of the stadium, and once they start noticing that, that's when changes happen. Like when it first opened, I think a lot of people compared it to Citi Field and said Citi Field has the batting cages, the place where the kids can hit the balls over the fence. They have the video game area. They had a whole load of stuff built out there for kids. I have a friend who has season tickets. He has twins, a twin daughter and son, and he takes them to the games. They're 6 years old, and for 3 innings, his wife and his daughter disappear, and she's hitting T-balls. And she comes back and she's ecstatic. And I think the Yankees never did that because when they built their new stadium, they were still within the Jeter era. They didn't need that type of stuff.
Well, not only that,
the
first season of season open, they won the World Series.
Absolutely, but they were well within that run of they were a contender every year when they first moved over.
I mean,
and they stocked up the team too, didn't they? Bring in Sabathia and Teixeira for the first year,
and AJ Burnett.
Correct.
So you
don't need kids hitting T-balls when you're winning World Series.
Well, exactly. I mean, you know what? Like people, would complain, oh, the Yankees spend so much money and this and that. Like they do, but they are, they're making money, but they're investing a lot of money back into their product. And basically, that was their business model. Their business model for many years was, to sign the stars, draw, of course, their expectation was to win every year, but you know what? Rotisserie teams don't, in baseball don't win every year. It's quite obvious you need a certain mix. If you look at the the best Yankee teams of, let's say, this, this almost 20-year run. The best teams were actually from 96 to 2001. Did they have stars? Yes. Okay. They hit pay dirt, and I've said this many times.
Thankfully, their owner was suspended.
Well, I was about to say, Howie Spira should have just as many World Series rings as George Steinbrenner.
Well,
okay.
I've always felt that they should put two plaques out there in Monument Park, one for Howie Spira and the other one for the Nixon campaign, because both times Steinbrenner was suspended, the real baseball people ran that team, built that team, and set it up to win when he came back. He would have traded all of those guys away or never acquired any of those people if he was running the show, because we all know that, his idea was all knee-jerk reactions.
Absolutely. Although I will give Steinbrenner a little credit. He didn't learn the first time around. Okay. I mean, as a Yankee fan, I had to witness that all through the 80s. It was painful. It was painful. But
Jay Buhner. How could you trade Jay Buhner?
I mean, well, listen, the Pirates traded Jay Buhner to the Yankees, but you know what? It wasn't only that. It was like, how can you trade, what was it, Ken Phelps? Why would you trade for Ken Phelps? You had a first baseman and a DH as a lefty hitting ones, no less. Why?
Well, why, at that point, honestly, why trade any young star player on that team for anything other than young pitching, which was what that team was missing since probably the early 80s?
The whole era.
You guys suffered through the era of the Joe Cowleys, Andy Hawkins, who else? Eric Rasmussen's. I mean, this is what the Yankees were trotting out there with these great lineups. They could score 5 or 6 runs a game, but their pitchers would give up 6 or 7.
Yeah. I listen.
I blame Steinbrenner because
exactly.
He spent money, and you can't take that away from him. I hear Yankee fans will always say, but the boss spent money. Yes, he did, but he spent it foolishly, and he traded away so much young talent.
What about the year he signed both Dave Collins and Steve Kemp?
Right, it was Dave Collins and Ken Griffey.
No, he signed Steve Kemp. Ken Griffey, I believe he traded for.
I thought he got Collins and Griffey right after the Yankees lost the World Series in '81 because he wanted to bring in speed guys so they could actually manufacture runs or something like that.
I'm pretty sure he got Kemp then too. But you know what? I will say the second time around when he came back in the '90s, it seemed as though he seemed he seemed a lot more less impulsive. And you know what? And it's just a perception, but
Well, doesn't age mellow us all?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you expect that after making the mistakes before, you could learn from it and sometimes surround yourself with good baseball people and trust, that what the advice that they're giving you is actually going to work. Plus, by the time he came back the second time.
And by the way, he was signed in December of '82. Kemp was signed in December of '82.
And Griffey's first year was also '82.
Okay, now I'm curious about this now, but for some reason I'm thinking I can't remember if Ken Griffey was what happened there? Okay, something happened there, but I'm pretty sure they were all.
That was the knee-jerk reaction to the loss in the '81 series, and that's when he let Reggie go, which, to his credit, he admitted was his biggest mistake, letting Reggie walk.
Yeah. Okay, no, he was traded. Griffey was acquired by a trade, but 82 was his first season.
And I think Collins came over too that same year. Remember the joke was they were going to become the Bronx Bunters?
Yeah. Dave Collins, now let's pull him up. I'm pretty sure they all came in
I think it was 82. They all surfaced right after the 81 series when they lost to the Dodgers. Wasn't that when he got into the fight?
And he dumped Dick Hauser, because the guy didn't win the World Series.
Well, he scapegoated him.
How dumb was that?
He turned Dick Hauser into a scapegoat because the team won 103 games. That was actually in 80. And 81, he brought back Lemon and Martin again.
Okay. Now,
no, Michael and Lemon in 81.
So he signed Dave Collins also 81. So Collins played the 82 season. No, he played in the 82 season. Signed him in
that one season, 81.
So all right, and here's just another wonderful trade. Okay, and Collins was traded along with Fred McGraw,
the crime dog,
Mike Morgan, and cash to the Blue Jays for Tom Dodd and Dale Murray.
Yes, the immortal Dale Murray.
Oh.
I think Murray was with the Mets for a while, too.
He was. I think he was a little more successful with the Mets. I don't remember. I
feel like Expos were where his success was.
Yeah, Expos for sure. But I believe he had success somewhere else after the Yankees as well, and I can't remember. But Dave Collins came in. He hit 253.
No, I felt like once he got to the Yankees and afterward, he was completely washed up at that point.
Pretty much. He never really. No, actually, he did have. He actually had his second season in Toronto was actually really good. I mean, he had a line of 308, 366,
which is why the Yankees traded for him.
Well, they signed him, but you know what? It's funny. The year that they signed him off of, his last year in Cincy, and he must have been hurt, played in 95 games. He hit 272, 355, 381. But his years before, 2 years before that, he hit 300 with on base percentages in the 360s and 402 slugging, 370. But what it was in 1980, he stole 79 bases. Okay. Now in 81, he stole 26, but he got caught 10 times. But like I say, in that his second year in Toronto, he stole 60 bases. So
I was never a big Collins fan. I thought that he was a marginal outfielder and no arm whatsoever. To my recollection, I mean, he did get on base, he did steal bases, but the Yankees tried to change their culture dramatically after that 81 series. And sometimes you break up a team too soon, and other times you hold on too long and you suffer. And I think the Yankees broke that team up too soon. It was a strike season, so you couldn't judge a lot by it in the first place in 81. And in 82, they let Reggie go, which, like I said again, Steinbrenner said that was his biggest mistake. Especially, I remember going to that game against California that rainy night when he hit that what turned out to be the game-winning home run off of Guidry. And the fans were chanting Steinbrenner blanks. And we all know what the words they were using when they were chanting that. They let him know in no uncertain terms. He messed up big time.
Well, I tell you, you know what? Looking back in hindsight, I don't even as much as Reggie was key to that team at different times. I don't think any Yankee fan when Reggie was let go, I don't think any Yankee fan regretted trading. When I say trading, I mean letting Jackson walk and bring in Winfield in at that time. Okay.
Well, they had that one overlap year in '81, and Reggie didn't have a great regular season. And then they got to the postseason, and Winfield had that, 1 for 22 in the World Series or something like that.
Yes.
So he had that really bad postseason. And I think it was sometime in probably like '84, '85 that Steinbrenner made the comment where I let Mr. October go and sign Mr. May. Something like that.
Yes.
To get under Winfield's skin.
And Reggie did not have a terrible postseason in '81 either. So he actually
did Reggie ever have a terrible postseason?
No. Well, I tell you, he had a good series against Milwaukee, and he had a good series against the Dodgers. Against Oakland, but
he didn't play. He didn't play much against Oakland. I thought he was injured or something like that.
So I'm looking at that now. Yes, he only had 4 at bats and he walked once. So yep. But he came back and he hit 333. Listen, anytime you have a slash line of 333, 429, 667, you did something right. But
Absolutely.
He hit 237 that year. But yes, he came back the very next year and hit 39 homers. But you know what? He had that big year, that following year in that first year in California. But after that, listen. But after that big year, he hit like, next couple of years he hit like close to 200. I think he got up to 250 once. And if I scroll up, I'll look and I'll see. And he had that one big year where oh yeah, you made a mistake. But you look at it afterward, not really. And the Yankees didn't get to, I don't think the Yankees, after '81, did the Yankees get to the postseason ever again with Winfield?
No, they didn't.
So it was.
And I think that's where the moniker Mr. May really got tagged on him.
But it wasn't his fault.
Oh no, it wasn't his fault because he wasn't the owner of the team, endorsing trades that were trading away young arms like the Doug Drabeks of the world and getting, back guys who, the left-handed first baseman, right field DH types that they already had a plethora of. They didn't need those type of players, but they kept trading for those type of players, and those were the Steinbrenner moves. And that really hurt that organization.
Fair, you know what? To be fair, in '81, okay, in the first series against Milwaukee, Winfield had an excellent series, and it was the series against Oakland and the Dodgers. He didn't do well, but you know what? He didn't go back to the postseason until '92.
Right, and he was at that point he was a DH with Toronto, just trying to get that ring.
Yeah, but you know what? He still, he still hit 2 home runs in that postseason.
Yeah, he did, no doubt.
So
no doubt, man.
So it's, and you like I say, and you can't dispute, the regular season career that he had with the Yankees. So, it was just kind of unfair that he had that moniker hung on him by Steinbrenner when, there was, as we say, a small sample.
Well, it's kind of funny because if you think about it, you're looking at a guy who, a star right field. He was an all-star right fielder, obviously a Hall of Famer. And without pitching, it doesn't matter what talent you bring to the game. Your team is not going to get to the postseason, and that was pre-wild card because the Yankees probably had 2 or 3 teams during that era which would have been prime wild card teams. Especially, I think the team in '85. Would they win like 99 games or something like that? They were 90 something games. They were 1 game behind Toronto.
Yeah, they pretty much they were coming in behind Toronto or Boston every year. if I remember correctly.
They just didn't have enough arms to win the division. But certainly if they played in the wild card era, they would have had enough to get to the postseason. Now, of course, with those same type of teams, I don't know how much damage they could have done, but those second-place finishes were being hung on Winfield. It's funny. They hung him on Winfield, but no one hung him on Mattingly. I wouldn't have hung it on either one of them, but I just thought it was interesting how Winfield was the guy who, caught the blame for it.
And the other thing is, Winfield, Mattingly's 85 season. Now listen, not to take anything away from Mattingly, but I've said this before, okay? Mattingly had Henderson hitting leadoff, Willie Randolph batting second, and he had Dave Winfield batting cleanup behind him. You think he got some pitches to hit? You think he had some guys on base to drive in? Yeah. So, and by the way, yes, in '85 they won 97 games.
And they came up one short.
99. They came up too short.
Too short.
Too short. But I kind of remember, and you know what?
Wasn't that the year that Yogi started as the manager? They fired him like a handful of games into the season.
I don't know if it was '85, but
I kind of feel like that was the season, and Billy Martin took over. And then, of course, did his Billy Martin magic and got them to the point where they were close to winning. And, well, or did the Warriors welcome out?
Like, you go back to 82. All right, well, they were pretty bad in 82. Okay? They were 79 and 83. That's when the Brewers. But, and you know what? Like, in 83, they won 93 games. 84, they won 87 games. That was the year. That was the magical Detroit year.
Right.
And then
35 and 5 to start.
So, I mean, they were just like, whoa, 85, we know they won the 97. And then I remember them finishing second to Boston, and there we go. That was 86 when Boston went to the World Series, but the Yankees won 90 games that year. And then they won 89 games. They won 89 games in 1987. Detroit won that year too. I think that was the year they traded John Smoltz for Doyle Alexander.
Doyle Alexander went 9-0 down the stretch.
Yes. But you know what? The Yankees, even though they won 89 games, but they still finished in fourth place in their division. That's pretty wild. But you know what? Those 89 games were more than what the Twins won in their division. Hot stuff. And the Twins won the World Series that year.
And they won the World Series. They won all 8 of their postseason games on home turf in the Homer Dome.
Yes. And then again, 88. The Yanks won 85 games. All right, not wild card numbers, but still, they won 85.
Borderline wild card numbers, definitely contention.
Yeah, and they were in fifth place. With, but to show you how competitive it was. And then it started. Then the fall started in '89, and in '90 they went 67 and 95. So. I'm trying to remember if it was 90 and 91.
But when they were in fifth place, they were 3.5 games back.
Yes. And
I mean, that's how close that division was.
I remember back in...
That was the Red Sox team that had that, that was what, the Joe Morgan incredible run?
Yes. And, I tell you, the Yankees, they got bad. I remember in '91, WABC was giving out this bumper sticker that said something to the effect like, "I'm a Yankee fan and I'm not going to take it anymore." Something like that. And of course, it was a takeoff from that movie Network.
I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Network.
Yeah, something like that. I'm a Yankee
Peter
fan
Finch.
and I'm mad as hell. Yes. And I remember in my local Jackson Heights pizza shop, the one that, we grew up by. I put it at the end of in between the kitchen and the pizza where the counter where they made the pies. It's stainless steel, and that's, he had stuff up on there, and I put that bumper sticker up on there. It was there for like so many years, and the owner's son who took over, I remember when they refurbished it, he said to me, he says, I tried to save it. He was a little kid when I put that thing up. As a matter of fact, I remember actually I won, there was some like call-in trivia question to win tickets to a Yankee game that I won one year. And the name of the place is Pizza Sam, and the owner was Sam. His son was Sam, and my oldest son was Sam. And I won 4 tickets to see the Yankees play Oakland, and they were horrendous, and Oakland was good, of course. And the Yankees got clobbered. But I'll never forget the only reason the two Pizza Sams were able to go is because they had a fire at the store, and the store was under construction. But I'll never forget the bumper sticker, and how different it was. I remember I went to a game. I went to Fenway Park. The only time I went to Fenway Park, and I can't remember who was pitching, but Danny Tartable was like our offensive star, and Clemens was pitching for Boston, and we were like, oh man, like we're gonna get crushed. That particular day, the Yankees they rocked Clemens, knocked him out of the game. Tartable hit a shot to center field, was like, like just something, we still remember, I went with my friend Ralph and Ralph's stepson. Anytime we talk about that trip, right away we go, remember Tartable shot. And again, talk about stadiums being able, we were talking earlier about getting down to the field. We got there early, so before the game, we were by the visitors' dugout, and Mike Stanley, I remember, signed the program, and we were talking with Buck Showalter, and Peter Gammons was on the field. I mean, we were right there. We were talking. It was like, it was great. It was great. You wouldn't get there with Yankee Stadium. Probably not Citi Field either. Not even before the game. So, Mark, we're pretty much, with a podcast, you're never out of time, but we're out of time.
I definitely think we've exhausted our listeners.
I think we have. So, but anyway, I thank you for coming on and filling in for Craig at the last minute. And it's been a pleasure. And we'll be back next week. Oh, so listen, very quickly. So right now, just for our listeners to let you know, we record this podcast, and it gets posted at a later date, usually about, depending on what night of the week we record. So, but I'll tell you what, this is now, it's Monday night, it's the night before the opening of the World Series. This thing will probably get posted a week from tomorrow. So, Mark, real quick, let's see how we look next week on Tuesday. Any predictions?
I am going to say Cleveland in 6.
Okay. You know what? I'm like an underdog kind of guy, and I would love to be able to agree with you, but I'm still gonna have to go with Chicago in 6. So
I think the All-Star game home field advantage debacle is going to sway the series into the hands of Cleveland. Just my opinion.
Well, I like that. John Lester had an incredible season, and his second half was just particularly his last 2 months. like each start was just better than the next. He's been great in the postseason so far. He's pitched in Cleveland before. He's pitched in the American League. I think it's great timing that he is the opening game starter for the Cubs. And so I'm going to go with them. Corey Kluber, well, he's better on 5 days rest. He's better on extra rest, but I just, I think he could, he could be electric at times, but I think he can be gotten to, and I'm going to go. Like I say, for that, I'm going to go with the Cubs in 6 games. I'm not ignoring Andrew Miller and Cody Allen.
He's the X factor. But I think Andrew Miller's the X factor because he's been the closest thing to a lockdown bullpen guy that we've seen, especially this year. And I just look at that guy and I say that if he can give you 2 innings out of the pen, he can really hold those Cub hitters at bay. But I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
If the Cubs do win this World Series, has Theo Epstein punched his ticket to Cooperstown as an executive? He would have been the slayer of the 2 biggest curses in all baseball.
I tell you what, I'd say yes, with the added caveat that he continues to be a baseball executive for another 10 years. I'm not saying he has to win another World Series, but I think if he's a successful baseball executive for another 10 years, I'd say he's a slam dunk. But right now, I'd say almost yes. And the only reason I say almost yes is because I still look at the Hall of Fame as my Hall of Fame standards are probably a little higher than most. So, like Jim Rice does not belong in the Hall of Fame.
I agree with that.
I think Jeff Bagwell is a just miss. As great a career as he's had, I think he's a just miss. So just to give you an idea of like where my standards are.
My standards have always been, first thing I always said, forget about the stats and all that. They all speak for themselves. But did you want to buy a ticket to see that guy play? And if you did, how long was he up there in that spot where you wanted to see him play? Like I always compare like Jack Morris and Bert Blyleven. I never bought a ticket to see Bert Blyleven play. I never saw Bert Blyleven play. Maybe I watched him on TV. He just wasn't that guy who came up and jumped out and grabbed me. But anytime Jack Morris was pitching against the Yankees in the Bronx, I'd go up and see that guy because I always knew that he was going to give you a game, and he pitched to the level of his competition. And that's why I think his numbers hurt him as stats go, but he was a big money guy. And to me, he was over the border to get into the Hall of Fame as far as I was concerned.
I agree, what I've said, I agree with you, and I've said this before. He was, he didn't have the sexy numbers, but he was always, amongst the best pitchers in baseball, and he did it for a long time. And you add to that what he's done in the postseason, in the World Series. I mean, my God, him and John Smoltz, that was probably the greatest postseason pitching duel ever. Ever.
Old versus young.
Yes. I mean,
and put it in Game 7 context, too. I mean, that's really what made it such a great pitching matchup was that it was a Game 7. But he had signature moments, and he also was a money pitcher, regular season and postseason. And I'm not trying to knock Blyleven, but he's a guy who just got in and waited a lot of years, and I just don't understand why that guy got in and this guy doesn't. I mean, some people say that sometimes the voters don't like certain people, and it is what it is, and so I get that. But that was just like one of the things that I've always like shook my head about and said I definitely don't get that, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. But I do know that executives do make it, and in Theo's case, the championship run in Boston, just slaying the curse of the Bambino in 2004 is a huge piece in anyone's resume. And then you throw possibly slaying the curse of the Billy Goat with the Cubs. I don't know how that guy's not a first ballot Hall of Famer as far as an executive. I understand your point. He needs to have worked the job a little bit more, but there are some guys who work the job for decades and never have that type of success ever combined. So just my 2 cents on that.
No, I agree. Like I say, I understand your point. I just, how can, it's, to me, it's, listen, it's amazing success. And if he was voted into Cooperstown, let's just say the Cubs win and he was voted into Cooperstown, he retired tomorrow and he voted in, couldn't argue it, but, it's a tough one, but I'd say but just a little more. So
well, I'm
anyway,
sure there will be a little more because I think he's 34, 35, right? Something like that.
He's a young guy. He's got
a lot of years ahead of him. Of course, he might go down different roads. Who knows? Because, the guy's just immensely talented when it comes to making decisions and crunching numbers and getting a good feel for things. But this Cubs team was 100-loss team 4 years ago when he came on the scene, and he told them within 4 or 5 years he was going to have a championship caliber team, and he did it. And you can't knock a guy when he makes a promise like that and with a lot of pressure. It wasn't like he went to Seattle and promised I'd make the playoffs a couple of years. He went from slaying one curse to another. And that takes a lot of what to do something like that. Most guys might not want to put themselves in that spot.
And you know what a lot of people overlook. I think almost everyone overlooks. The Cubs have been as successful as they've been this year with a $200 million free agent bust in Jason Hayward.
Complete bust.
Yes.
A complete bust. And they keep trotting him out there in the postseason. They use the excuse, well, he's so darn good with the glove out there in the field, we can survive without him hitting, or we hope that he'll catch lightning in a bottle in the postseason. I don't see any good weather coming his way.
Not this year, but you know what? He's still young, and you know what? There was a lot. I'm sure a $200 million contract is a lot of pressure. I don't think he was. He went into the season thinking, that's it. Okay, I got it made. I can coast. So.
Well, I got a suggestion for him. The $200 million is putting a lot of pressure on him. Let him just take $100 million and throw 50 to each of us, and we'll take it off his hands, and he'll feel more relaxed and be more successful.
There you go. Or not even us. So, set up a foundation.
Give it to a good charity or something, seriously.
I was about to say, I'm sure, you know what? I'm sure his accountants and lawyers have already set him up with a foundation, just for the tax purposes alone. So.
It's just that the sick money that it is puts an inordinate amount of pressure on a ball player. And you can't turn the money down, obviously, because if you do that, everyone's going to look at you and say, this guy's crazy. But the pressure that it puts on a guy and especially going into Chicago where he was supposed to be the final piece to the puzzle. And it's funny because even though he was the final piece, he didn't really help in the mix. I think he hit 8 home runs, 9 home runs, something like that. He's always been forecasted to be a 5-tool player. His fielding skills are fantastic, off the charts. He can run. He used to hit for average and somewhat power, and you know what? He might still rebound in the years to come. It's a bust this year, but can you really call it a bust when the team wins 103 games and gets to the World Series?
No, you can't. And
if he was good, would they have won 120?
You know what? I'm curious to see. You know what? But and it's funny, his WAR, for those of you that believe in WAR, his WAR was 1.6, his overall WAR. his defensive WAR was 1.3. So basically, it all came from, whatever he got from his defense.
I could see that total.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean,
So,
in the previous 2 years, his overall WAR was 6.5 and 6.4. So, he was more of a complete player. And you know what? He's a young guy. All right, he's 27. Imagine.
he should be entering his prime now, his next 5 years.
Exactly. He's just 27, and so you know what? And he won't be 28 till the second half of the season. And by the way, he's I don't know where he grew up, but I know he was born in New Jersey. But I don't think he grew up there. For some reason, I'm thinking he grew up elsewhere. But I do remember that he was born in New Jersey. So, but anyway, okay, Mark, listen, you and I, we can go on and on. Thank you.
I was going to say thank you for having me on board, and I've been subbing in a lot, so I guess I'm becoming the Jose Oquendo of Comfortably Zoned Radio, because I've been the utility guy around here, and just thanks for the invite, and I hope I added at least something to the mix tonight.
Oh, you most definitely did. It's funny. Whenever I have somebody fill in for Craig always says, I hope I don't become Wally Pip.
Hardly. Craig, don't worry about it. I'm just keeping your seat warm tonight. You'll be back next week, and no one will remember who I was. Trust me.
You never know. All right, Mark, thank you, and good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, everyone.